A tanker has been boarded by 6 gunmen off the coast of Yemen. That's according to the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations. The armed men reportedly took control of the vessel and diverted it towards Somalia. The current condition and the whereabouts of the crew remains unknown. Let's speak to Michael Evans, who's a former defence editor at The Times. Michael, good evening. Who owns this tanker?
I think there's some doubt about who actually owns it, but it appears to be one of these shadow fleet tankers. So it's rather strange that they've taken this one. But in a sense, it doesn't matter who owns it, if you like, because this is a threat which we've had for years and years and years. But there's been a lapse in attacks on these vessels by the people from Somalia, the pirates. So what we're facing here is, an added ingredient to the problems that we're all facing now because of the war with Iran. The pirates in Somalia have decided that this is a grand time to come back and start threatening and seizing tankers in order to get money for them, ransom money. So it's just another added ingredient to an already incredibly volatile region.
And why do they think it's a grand time to do that?
Well, it's pretty simple. America is focusing most of its effort at the moment in the region around Iran, the Gulf of Oman, the Gulf of Arabia, etc. They've got pretty well 20 or so warships still entangled in that operation. Normally, the US Navy has 2 or 3 guided missile destroyers in the Red Sea, but their main effort at the moment is against or looking at the dangers posed by the Houthis in Yemen. So here we have, if you look at the map, the Gulf of Aden, where this incident took place today, feeds into the Red Sea. There's a choke point there. You've got Yemen to the north of the choke point, and you've got Somalia to the south. So the pirates who operate from the northern end of Somalia are returning to the Gulf of Aden, seizing what tankers they can. They have, I think, 6 now. The one today was the 6th that they had in the last few weeks, and they're holding the crews to ransom. And at the moment, there's not a lot anyone can do about it. You may remember that when the piracy was at its height in sort of 27, 8, 9, 10, up to 2012, there was a maritime organization, 40 nations or so, that took part in anti-piracy operations and brought this piracy threat to an end. Well, that was, that's a long time ago. We're talking 15 years. Now, suddenly, because ships are being rerouted away from the Gulf and away from the Strait of Hormuz, they're desperately trying to find different ways of shipping and transporting their oil and their other commercial goods. And they're using other routes. And these other routes, of course, are playing into the hands of the Somali pirates.
So a sort of perfect storm, really. Who are they specifically, or who are they likely to be specifically? We don't know for sure, I don't suppose, but who are they likely to be? And what do they want and who from?
Well, I think these Somali pirates, they're people who have financial backing. They have a lot of experience.
Financial backing from who? Who are they likely backed by?
Well, I think, to be honest, they don't need backing. They are a capable force. All they need really is a few weapons, AK-47s or whatever, and a fast craft. And they go out to the ship and they board the ship, and then they take charge of it. I mean, I think it's a fairly straightforward thing. There is some intelligence that they have links with the Houthis and also with Al-Shabaab, which is the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist organization that's been in Somalia for years. But if they are linked up with the Houthis in one form or another, then it's, as you said, it's a perfect storm of trouble for the West and for shipping companies who are desperately trying to use whatever routes they can find to get their ships through safely.
And so, I mean, I suppose it's an obvious question, really, but this is going to be a problem, right? And there are going to be more tankers who are vulnerable to this, and there will be operators now watching on and wondering, with the Straits of Hormuz closed and the alternative routes becoming more dangerous, what this is going to mean for global shipping and the knock-on.
Well, when the pirates were at their height in sort of 2010, 2011, it cost in ransom money alone, it was like $400 million. So they are, a pretty troublesome group of people. And, the Middle East is currently a mess anyway. The US has got its main focus, obviously, on Iran. In other countries, Europe in particular, have not shown any great enthusiasm for sending warships to join the US. Will they now look back to what they had to do 10, 15 years ago and start sending warships to protect vessels in the Gulf of Aden from these pirates? Well, I think that's fairly unlikely. I think there are too many commitments at the moment, and I think the pirates are having a field day.
Okay. Michael, very insightful. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. Michael Evans, who is a former defence editor of The Times, with us on Times Radio tonight. We'll watch that story for you. I think it's worth us keeping our eye on what happens with that and whether it builds and there are more examples of Somali pirate activity in these routes that are being used as an alternative to the Straits of Hormuz.
The war in Iran is causing a surge in piracy off the coast of Somalia. With oil tankers directed away from the Strait of Hormuz, many are being redirected to the Gulf of Aden, where at least 5 attacks have taken place since April. We can speak to Amy Daniel, who is the co-founder and CEO of Windward, a global maritime intelligence firm, which has looked at the numbers and broken down the data for us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and by the way, great new studio, and the orange looks great. Really, I'm really looking forward to seeing you peeling this on live.
That's enough. We're not allowed to talk about it.
No, I'm just saying. I was listening to you. I had to comment on the orange in the studio.
Know. That's very good of you. It's good to speak to you. I'm quite struck, Amy, by the fact that a few years ago we spoke a lot about Somali pirates. That became a buzz in news coverage, and it seemed to go away actually over these last few years. So can we start there? Did things get safer in this particular part of the world, or did the world stop paying attention?
No, actually, things did become safer, and Somali piracy did go away. And I think it's just it's a pull and push, if you will, because you had just a lot of piracy. Europe stood up EU NAVFOR SPIDIS, which is a multi-force naval team over there, and CENTCOM support that as well, and they managed to repress piracy. Now, where all the US forces are focused on Iran, obviously, and a lot of the EU forces are focused on convoys and protection of shipping with all the Houthi threats and the Houthis shooting ballistic missiles in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb, then everybody's overstretched, and then, when things are overstretched, somebody can pop out of the woodwork and find a really good opportunity to make some money, which I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, okay. And so how dangerous is it? When we talk about the number of incidents, and I suppose the targets of these incidents as well, just help us understand what's actually going on.
Yeah, so first of all, there were 5 events, hijacks in the last, 2 or 3 weeks, which is a lot. And there were 2 this week. Side note, the ship they took yesterday is actually OFAC blacklisted Iranian-related ship. So I'm not sure their targeting is as good as it should be. They're just kind of finding whatever they can grab. In terms of how dangerous it is, then it's more likely than not that these ships will find themselves off the coast of Somalia, like we've seen in satellite imagery, few of them waiting for somebody to drop 5 or 10 or 20 million bucks as ransom for these seafarers to be released and the ships to be released as well. We should remember these are innocent people, so we have innocent seafarers losing their lives in the Straits of Hormuz because of ballistic missiles, in the Red Sea because of ballistic missiles, obviously in Ukraine, in the whole Ukraine-Russia war, and now also in Somalia. So it's becoming a high-risk job. Yeah, a
high-risk job and a threat to shipping companies, which are already strained by attacks also around the Strait of Hormuz, in the Red Sea as well. So this is now a widespread and varied risk, as you've outlined for us. What does this mean for shipping companies and, for example, their insurance and their access to insurance?
Yeah, the insurance has already been scaled back significantly, specifically because of the Houthi attacks. I think it's very hard right now to get proper insurance right now in the Red Sea. Even in the Straits of Hormuz in the last week, Chinese companies have pulled their willingness to transit in and out. And I think effectively in the Straits of Hormuz, the major trader right now is ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. Obviously, it's a national operator with a couple hundred ships or 300 ships, so they can take the risk, obviously, because it's a nation. It's not a private shipping company. But otherwise, I think we'll see more and more commercial shipping companies divert away from the Red Sea, divert away from the Gulf of Aden, divert away from the Straits of Hormuz. And I think people are trying to find a way to deal with this. So Saudi's exporting from Yanbu, exporting north. ADNOC is operating shuttles in and out from the Straits of Hormuz and actually selling these services to Kuwait and Iraq as a service for them to be able to start exporting again. And I suspect Qatar will be there again. So, the world is flexible like we've seen in COVID. There's always a solution. It does mean that prices are going up and delivery times are longer. And I think the question is, how long will this situation stay in a strained situation in global economy? Because there is a compounding strain. The strategic reserves of oil are going down, and I think Trump did announce economic, quote unquote, D-Day on Iran yesterday or 2 days ago, including on China. And China today, and the economists are saying that they're not going to play ball with that. So I think it's interesting to see where all this is going. I think we're at a bit of an impasse right now.
An impasse.
And therefore, Somali piracy will continue.
Yeah, and that's crucial, isn't it? Is what justice looks like for them. If there was a deterrent from NATO and the combined maritime forces and central command, as you outlined, and that's gone, actually, who is policing? Who is holding Somali pirates to account?
My view is actually that they're not such a big problem right now.
Okay.
I think the Houthis with ballistic missiles who can drown and put ships in fire are more dangerous. That's the reality. You do priorities.
Yeah.
I think the U.S. is very focused on Iran because they have to solve it one way or another. So actually, I don't see anybody going after the Somali pirates anytime soon. And therefore, my expectation is they will continue to hijack. We'll see that these numbers rise, not go down.
Right. Okay. In terms of the diversions away that you mentioned, that was one of the things that we spoke of in the fairly early days of the conflict in Iran, was that because companies were forced to, as quickly as possible, develop new routes through different parts of the world, actually, in that way, the conflict achieved something that, years worth of conferences and diplomatic efforts would have failed to achieve. There was an instant reaction because things still needed to be moved around, but by using different routes. It's interesting that this problem with piracy may be a problem that is allowed to persist because it is not prioritised, and actually immediately fixing it is far more difficult than finding those different export routes that perhaps we saw early in the conflict.
Yeah. First of all, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about Hormuz, you're talking about 20% of global energy. That's a big enough. You're talking about 25% of global LNG export, gas exports, and so forth, and many other components. I think 15% of global container traffic has been transshipped to Jebel Ali in the Gulf. So it's a big problem. Somali piracy is a worrisome problem, but it's not as big as 20% of the world's energy, right? 20% of the world's energy is impacting everybody, including you and me, in our bills, right? But not just us. There are countries in Asia that have stopped traffic to work for 5 days, took it down to 2 or 3 days because there's no oil, there's no fuel. There is, if you put that together actually with a drought in Europe, and you've seen France taking its nuclear reactor production down, and you've seen some rivers go a bit dry in Europe. I think it's all really connected. The world is a complex ecosystem, and every one of these things contribute to that. Yes, people are looking for alternative routes around the Straits of Hormuz. I can tell you right now, it's a huge success. It's going to take 5 to 6 years. In 5 or 6 years, you'll see pipeline through Iraq, through Kuwait, through Jordan, maybe through Israel. Any way out of Hormuz, from the Gulf, which is not through Hormuz, will be prioritized. I think Oman will be the big winner from this because they're going to see a huge economic boom because they have ports outside of Hormuz.
Okay. It's really good to speak to you. Thank you very much, Ami Daniel. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me. And again, great studio. Good luck with the orange.
Thanks so much. Ami Daniel is the co-founder and CEO of the global maritime intelligence firm Windward.